is only a grip.
It's only in my hands on every single shot.
It's an extra 2 yards of carry when it matters most.
Respect the grip.
And with that, welcome to the Wagyu Filet Show. And we certainly, Wags, have a lot to break down from an exciting weekend.
Yeah, we certainly do. WM Phoenix Open, the Super Bowl. But Brendon, I got to start with this. We played golf last week. You told me you went on our buddy Jeff Eisenband's podcast, and he found in his research, he found an interesting article on you from 2015 Memorial. They were doing sort of a player profile, and you had played the President's Cup there in 13, and you told me about this, which I'm really glad you did, because this article has made my day. I'm just going to read a couple quotes. In the "What has he done" section, the first line is, "He has won a lot, almost." I think alluding to the fact that you couldn't quite cross the finish line. He goes into some other stuff. What does he do well? And then this is my favorite part. What he doesn't do well. For a man of such heft, the 6-foot de Jonge is listed perhaps only a little generously at 230 pounds. He doesn't exactly bomb the ball off the tee. What did you do to this guy? And then, go ahead.
When I was telling, when you're telling somebody something, and as the words are coming out of your mouth, you're saying in your head, just shut up, stop talking. When I was telling you about this article and, that Jeff had brought this up, I was saying to myself, just please don't tell Johnson, but it was too late.
and this is the tail end of this. He says, why is he worth watching? For starters, it's the way he looks. De Jonge is no schlub, but in general, his shape more resembles some of the male fans in his galleries than many of the sinewy athletic wisps on the PGA Tour.
Let me tell you how this all came about. So Jeff Eisenband, who we both know very well from PGA Tour Live, he's a fantastic host and he's a lovely guy. I really like Jeff. I liked him a lot more before we did this, but he sends me a note and he's like, hey, I've started this podcast called Eyes on Golf. It's a play on his name, EIS on golf. Yes, EIS. And he's like, would you be willing to come on? So I said, yeah, I would love to. So Jeff, being the professional that he is, sends me this awesome rundown. And I read this rundown. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave this podcast looking like I'm a hell of a lot better player than I am. I mean, it goes into President's Cup and how well I played here and there and everywhere. And I'm thrilled to do this interview with Jeff. And right off the bat, he leads with that. And I'm just sitting there and my mouth's getting wider and wider. And I'm thinking, Jeff, what happened to this rundown about where I was going to be like this guy that was an unbelievable player, and now I'm this fat slob that's walking down the fairways at the Memorial?
You got to break him down before you build him up, I guess.
I guess so, but I have no idea what I did to this guy, but I obviously pissed him off at some point. And to go a little bit deeper, so after this article, I did some research into this guy, and I found another article that he'd written about me that the headline was "De Jonge treats Caddy like dirt." I've always viewed myself as like pretty even-tempered on the golf course. I didn't get too up, too down. I didn't really yell at my caddies. But I guess at some point I threw my putter at the bag and it kind of bounced off. And God forbid my caddy had to make 3 or 4 extra steps to pick up the putter. But this guy was watching me, obviously, and that was the headline: De Jonge treats Caddy like dirt.
That is classic. I always thought of you as a bit of a caddy killer, especially, you never blamed anything on yourself. You always put it on D-Bear or Phil or whoever it was.
Well, it was their fault most of the time.
That is classic. All right. WM Phoenix Open. Thank you. WM Phoenix Open. Incredible finish, Nick Taylor. But I think the story, Nick Taylor and Charley Hoffman in that playoff was incredible. But I think the story of this week is always the spectators, the fan interaction. I mean, they've stopped counting attendance now for 3 years. By all, they closed the gate on Saturday. That's the biggest day there, and by all accounts, there was over 200,000 spectators on that property, which is nuts. All clamoring to try to get into 16. There was a couple incidents this week. You have a little more knowledge of what went on, but talk to me about what you think about these fans.
I'm kind of mixed on this one. We live at a time when it's kind of a game of one-upmanship, right? So you see these guys doing crazy stuff, and then the next year, somebody's going to do something crazier. I still don't mind it. Like you accept it for that week. You know going into the week that it's going to be nuts. It's not going to be like anything else. But it does cross the line when it starts affecting golf shots. Like, I don't mind these guys doing crazy things as opposed to a guy yelling in someone's backswing where they're actually trying to create a difference in the golf shot.
Yeah, and I mean, it was an interesting Saturday because they were finishing up the second round, and there was that big gap in action, especially around the 16th hole. I think Smiley Kaufman and Kevin Kisner had a little setup there on 16, and they were throwing footballs into the crowd and riling people up. And there's one video of a streaker coming out and kind of trying to do some sort of handspring flip into the front bunker, which in the video, it looked like he broke his neck. Smiley apparently had to get in there and rake the bunker, but upwards of maybe 6-8 streakers. They weren't really full streakers. They were still wearing some clothes. On Saturday alone, it's gotten a little bit out of hand. I mean, the guy last year was pretty incredible when he was juking out the security guards and then ran all the way down the 17th hole, and jumped in the pond. But I mean, they had to stop serving alcohol pretty early in the day Saturday. I mean, they opened these gates early. Everybody runs over to 16. It's great for a week. It personally, like back in the day, I loved it for a couple of years, never really played well. And then the 1 year I played great, I had not so good of experience. Did you ever have any interesting experiences with fans?
Yeah, I did. I had a couple. I was playing pretty well 1 year, and I was standing on a tee box, and this wasn't a bunch of fans. It was probably 5 or 6 guys, and these guys broke out into song, and they started singing "De Jonge's Got a Hungry Bum," and I guess I was kind of sporting a bit of a wedgie at the time. So I honestly, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was really funny. I never had anything where some guys were intentionally trying to put me off. It was, listen, you get to 16, it's loud. It's so loud that you're not going to hear one guy yelling over the rest typically. Again, I think that's where we get into trouble, is where guys are intentionally trying to put someone off. I have no problem with someone saying something personal to somebody walking down the fairway. I think it's part of it. It's part of the week. I know Zach Johnson obviously heard some comments about his Ryder Cup captaincy that he didn't take too kindly to. Actually confronted a guy. I don't think the guy ended up getting thrown out, but there was that. And then there was an instance where Billy Horschel was actually standing up for another guy in his group. He was walking down the right side of the 15th fairway while one of the fans was yelling at someone else hitting in Billy's group. And I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't either. And 16's its own thing. Anything and everything can go inside the Coliseum. My problem is when it spills out. And back in 2012, I played really well Thursday, Friday. I was in the third to last group on Saturday, and we get to the 10th green, and obviously the 16th is right next to it. I know you know that. And there's the entrance to the public grandstand, this stairwell going up, and we're the third to last group. So 16 is hopping at this point when we get to 10, and the stairwell is packed with people trying to get in. And the shadows just so happen to be leaning over the 10th green, and I'm over my putt. People from this staircase are screaming at me, putting shadow puppets over my ball. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny to talk about now, but while I'm trying to putt, trying to remain in contention in this golf tournament, and then get to 11T, which is the hardest tee shot on that golf course, and they're just yelling at me while I'm pulling the club away. I think I probably sniped it into the water and made double there, and basically ended my chances. And it's fine. It's gotten to the point where there's so many people. There's over 200,000 people on the golf course. only 20,000 can get into the
Yeah.
Coliseum, and most of that's corporate hospitality. And so it spills over. Everybody thinks that, oh, this is what you do at the Phoenix Open. We're just going to yell at people all over the place. And it, for me, I wish I kind of quit playing there, and I had a few opportunities to go back, and I didn't take it. I would love to go back and play it again, because looking at the way they've built out 17 and 18, it is such a wild scene. It looks incredible on TV. And when you look at a guy like Nick Taylor, the way he made those 3 putts in a row on 18 in the regulation and then both playoff holes, the amount of people around and the vibe, like, I'm getting chills just thinking about what that experience had to be like for him.
Yeah, it is. They've made it bigger and better as far as that goes. As you said, that build out on 17 and 18 looks absolutely amazing now. Yeah, I was watching even on the front nine that the amount of people that have spilled out onto the front nine. Number 4 was like a mini number 16, and they started booing people when they missed the green on 4 as well. So it's where is the line? That is the thing that does kind of worry me a little bit. As I said at the start of the segment, we are in a time of one-upmanship, and where is the line? Is it going to take somebody getting seriously hurt or something really, really bad happening before we start kind of maybe just bringing things back a little bit?
Well, I mean, a couple of years ago when Sam Ryder made that hole-in-one, I think they still had aluminum beer cans,
Yeah,
and they were all getting chucked out. I mean, that's, if you had a full can of beer
sure.
and it hit you as you're walking, like, that could seriously hurt you. I know they've stopped. I think everything's now in plastic cups, so that's not much of an issue. But I mean, what's to stop somebody from running out and tackling a player, or even shivving them or something? I mean, it is scary. There's no amount of security that can handle a mass like that.
No, it is. It's impossible for those guys, and they do the best they can. But as you say, it happened last year with that guy taking off down 17. Security couldn't get him. Obviously, this guy that's doing snow angels in the bunker on 16, they couldn't get that guy. So yes, if a group of guys really want to get out of the crowd and onto the golf course, and they don't care about the consequences, they're going to do it. There is no way that security can stop those guys from getting out there.
So Phoenix Open is always Sunday of the Super Bowl. Clearly that was going on last night, Chiefs versus the 49ers. I think having all the delays they had, usually that tournament ends right before the Super Bowl goes. I had 2 TVs going, fortunately, so I was watching both. I don't know if everybody has the luxury of moving TVs around. I think it's been made easier with streaming, that you can get multiple things going at once. But I thought the finish of the Phoenix Open was enthralling. To the point in the start of the Super Bowl wasn't very exciting. I mean, it was such a low scoring game early that I was listening to the Phoenix Open and having the playoff with Charley Hoffman, who, by the way, had a terrible year last year. It took a top 50 career earnings. Take a guess. Can you take a guess how much Charley Hoffman has made in his career on the PGA Tour?
Oh, I'm going to guess Charlie's been out there a long time. He's got to be 40 million, maybe somewhere in that range.
That's a good guess. $34.45 million Charley Hoffman's made. 4-time winner on the PGA Tour. He's served 2 different stints on the PGA Tour policy board, just coming off January 1st. And I think, given, I know we were on the board together for 3 years, kind of leading into COVID and during COVID, and then Charley, with 1 year off, came right back on the board. Now he's dealing with all this live stuff. I think being off the board and not having all the questions by players all the time is probably going to help his golf game, and it kind of proved to do so this week in Phoenix.
Yeah, he certainly turned back the clock a little bit. Charlie's one of those guys that I always thought Charlie would play well late into his 40s, get close to 50. He's always been very, very strong, never struggled to hit the ball a long way. Has dealt with a couple back injuries as well as dealing with all the stuff on that policy board. So it's nice to see Charlie playing really well. And man, he was so close to winning that tournament. I thought Nick Taylor's putt in regulation there was just going to miss off to the right, caught the right side of the hole. But the finish to the golf tournament was a lot more enthralling than the first quarter of that the Super Bowl that we had going on last night.
And the way Charlie finished in regulation, but then in the playoff, Nick Taylor on the first playoff hole made the birdie putt. Crowd's going crazy. Charlie settles himself down and tops it right on top of him from about 10 feet, kind of a left to right breaking putt. Not the easiest putt on the golf course. I don't know if you noticed Charlie waiting to go out see if there was a playoff. He had that Venom back brace on. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, I saw that.
and he's 47 years old. I mean, we're only 43. I just found it humorous on TV that he's got this vibrating, heating back brace on while he's going out to play a playoff, but smashed those tee shots down 18 both times. Charlie's been one of those guys that has worked really hard physically to remain relevant with length, and it certainly has proved well for him. Also, with that finish, moves into the Aon Swing 5 and got a spot at the Genesis next week, which is massive. I mean, so many more FedEx Cup points. If you have a good finish in a signature event this year, it really sets you up for success.
Yeah, obviously the win would have been fantastic for him, giving him that 2-year exemption. But on the flip side of that, yes, he starts to get into some really big events now, and you cannot underestimate how much that's done for his confidence. It's been a long time since Charlie's been in contention in a golf tournament and deep into a golf tournament the way he was. Unfortunately, his second loss in a playoff at that tournament now, lost to Kenny Perry all the way back in 2009. But, that tournament for Charlie's Waste Management, or WM, has been a huge sponsor of his for a long time. He's been sporting that green glove for as long as I can remember. So to see him perform that well in front of what is a lot of friends and family and sponsors was really cool to see.
It was. That would have been an amazing experience for him. I'm sure he's enjoying it and relishing it. His family was there, Stacy and his kids. I know our kids are similar ages, so it was cool to see them out supporting Charlie. Nick Taylor, second last year. It was a designated event last year. Was in the final group with Rahm and Scheffler. Nick lives in the Scottsdale area, and he finished second last year, wins this year. I was looking in his tournament history before that, not very good. He had played it 8 previous times going into last year, 4 missed cuts. Best finish was a T49. What do you think changed with Nick in that golf course? And did you ever have an experience where you really struggled at a venue and then it all of a sudden it just kind of snapped into place for you?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. Sometimes you figure out how to play a golf course. You go about it the same way over and over and over, and you don't get any results. You just completely sort of start afresh and play the golf course in a very different way. I was that way with TPC, with the stadium course that we played for the players. And it took a conversation that I had with Nick Price to really understand how to play that golf course. I hated it. I hated the design of it. I felt very uncomfortable out there. And he said to me, take whatever club you can hit off every tee to get you right around that 150-yard marker. He said that is going to be the widest part of every fairway with Pete Dye golf courses. Nick's got a wonderful record around there. I think might have the tournament record. So was willing to listen to him. And then he went deeper into it. He explained how him and whoever was caddying for him, it was Squeaky at the time, he would stand on the front of the 17th green. He would walk back to front. Squeaky would stand on the left side and would walk left to right. And where they met, that was where they would try and land the ball to all 4 flags. He knew that if he made 4 threes there, he was never going to hurt himself in the tournament. So just little things like that, I think, certainly help. And, I don't know if Nick Taylor sought out the help of anybody to play that golf course, or just, figured out I need to try play it a different way, or just got comfortable out there.
Yeah, his speed was so good on the greens all week. His short game was excellent. I know ball in hand certainly makes chipping a little bit easier when you're in the fairway, but it was just a wonderful performance. All right, Super Bowl. I was on the Chiefs.
Of course, I know you're a huge Taylor Swift fan. I'm not surprised at all.
Seriously, for the last 2 weeks, I was like, I'm not going to go against Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to go against Patrick Mahomes. And then right before the game, I decided to align myself with the San Francisco 49ers. And I did have heads in the coin toss. And then it was kind of basic. I had heads in the coin toss. I thought it was going to be high scoring. So I took the over and I took the Niners. And after the coin toss, it was just a downward spiral that kept hanging on to the over for so long, going to the new overtime format. I was like, ooh, if they both score touchdowns, then I can still possibly have success here. But, did you have any action on that game last night?
I didn't. I left it completely alone, but you knew that blocked extra point was gonna come back to haunt them at some point. I know even if they'd made that, you wouldn't have covered. But that block's extra point was always going to play a big part of the outcome of that game. I thought the first quarter was shocking. I thought the game from there actually picked up a lot. Thought the second half was really good. And you know what, Mahomes, he just finds a way to get it done. It was with his legs this time. He's a winner.
He's a winner, and since he sat his rookie year behind Alex Smith, and then he's made the AFC Championship game every year. Now played in 4 Super Bowls. The only 2 playoff losses he's had were once to Brady in the AFC Championship game, and once to Brady in the Super Bowl as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I mean, it's obviously too early to put him in the conversation with Brady, but given what he's done so far, I mean, it has to be one of the greatest beginnings to a career ever.
Oh, very much so. And they played some stupid cartoon commercial where they showed Brady running down the track and handing over the Super Bowl as if it was a baton to Mahomes. And I think it is. It's you know what? It doesn't matter how these guys performed in the regular season. It seems like as soon as these guys lace it up for the playoffs, they're going to perform and they're going to carry their team over the line, put them on their back however they have to, and get those results.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to remember. Never go against Brady, and that's the same thing I was thinking about Mahomes, and I went against him, and it stung a little bit, but I will be just fine because my picks are doing pretty good in golf this year. Not that I would never wager on golf. I'm a professional golfer, but the occasional fun FedEx Cup points race between you and me going through the year so far, I have 828.8 points. You have 468.8 FedEx Cup points. So quite a lead I've built on you so far.
We are still on the West Coast.
I think.
Why are you adding these up now?
Well, I just wanted to have some. I just because I figured I had a big lead, and I'm going to gloat about it while I still can. Interesting. You've been going to the Scotty Scheffler well quite a bit, which he had another solid performance this week. And when he birdied 4 in a row starting Sunday and played really well, finishing in the morning in the 3rd round. And he birdied 2 through 5, 4 in a row starting out the 4th round. I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to win this thing by 5 shots. And then the putter again, Brendon, what's going on?
I don't know, Wags, but it's bad. You know, he's right there where he needs to be. Hits this beautiful 4-iron right into the middle of the green on 13. He's got 25, 30 feet right up the hill. One that you're probably thinking about making, leaves it 4 feet short, misses that, hits it just off the green on the right side on 14. Very, very basic chip shot. Doesn't get that up and down. Comes to 15, does the same thing. He's just off the green on the left side. Maybe should have used your strategy there of putting from way off the green. But anyway, chips that one 4 feet by and misses that. So 3 4-footers, 5-footers in a row. But I tell you what, I cannot believe, and he does this week in, week out, the resiliency that he shows in the long game. It's like water off a duck's back. I've missed 3 4-footers in a row, but I'm going to stand up on 16 and hit it to 6 inches. And he does it every single week. You just, unfortunately, if you're pulling for Scotty Scheffler, it's very, very frustrating to watch him play. And you can only imagine how frustrated he is having to deal with it every single week.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point inside 10 feet. I just fully don't expect him to make the putt. And I would have to imagine, I mean, you know, you're a terrible putter, how frustration, how it would linger on and on throughout it. But you said it, you hit the nail on the head. It's remarkable what he's able to do with the long game. My pick this week was Sahith Theegala. He really kind of strung me along. He's had now 2 really good WM Phoenix Opens in just 3 years on the PGA Tour. Obviously winning the Fortinet last fall for his first PGA Tour victory. I love the way he plays. He's so creative, shapes the ball both ways. And sometimes when he's out of position, it's more exciting to watch than when he's in the fairway because he hits all these sort of escape shots. I mean, in winning Fortinet, he was doing it. He was doing it this week. And Phoenix reminds me of like a Phil Mickelson, who's never afraid to take it, to take a shot on, oftentimes to Sahith's demise. I mean, I go back to the Travelers Championship his rookie year when he was in that fairway bunker on 18 and tried to hit it on the green when all he had to do was lay up, pitch it out, maybe make a par to win, but guarantee a playoff. He made double to end up, missing out on a playoff there. But like have you watched Sahith much? And I mean, what do you make of that?
I have. He's one of those guys that I'll kind of tune into. He's a bit of a throwback with the way he doesn't mind shaping the ball. Not one of these robots that just sends it dead straight in miles. I mean, he hits it long enough, but he's a throwback. Moves it left to right, right to left. He'll stand there and hook a wedge. I mean, in a way, it's like your buddy Bubba Watson. Actually, he doesn't mind hitting these big shaped shots. I know you hate bringing up Bubba Watson at any point, but he does. He plays kind of that sort of game, and he makes you a fan favorite pretty quickly. Somebody that's a little bit different, plays the game slightly differently, doesn't see straight lines, definitely sees curves, and yeah, it's fun to watch.
I think he's got tremendous potential. He was a standout at Pepperdine, and I mean, as we talk about like Nick Taylor most likely locking up a President's Cup bid this year, I think Sahith is going to be playing for the U.S. team. Like looking at the European side of Ryder Cups and the youth that they have going on with Aubert, Dietrich, Højgaard, both Højgaards, and you're wondering like, is the U.S. side coming up? And I think you look at a guy like Sahith, he would be a ball to be partnered with in any sort of format. And getting back to Nick Taylor, you obviously played the President's Cup in 2013. I mean, he's got to be a lock, right, for Royal Montreal.
I would think so. Now that was actually another discussion that Jeff and I had on his Eyes on Golf after he kicked me and stood on my head. We talked a lot about the President's Cup, and yeah, you would imagine that Nick Taylor, Mike Weir was a big role model of his, probably a hero of his growing up. So I think there's going to be 2, maybe 3 Canadians on that team. I think right now Nick Taylor is the top of that list. This is a big event. It really is. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Mackenzie Hughes play his way onto that team. I think Mackenzie was genuinely hurt by not making that team for Trevor Immelman a couple of years ago at Quail Hollow there. I think Mackenzie's going to use that motivation in the right way. Yeah, he's one of those guys that's not going to sit around and pout. I think he's going to use that to make him work extra hard and make sure that he's there for that team. But yes, I think the short answer there is yes. I think Nick Taylor is a lock because this guy's good. I think he's gonna continue to produce good results. He's got a really solid game, not flashy by any means, but very, very solid. There's no holes in his game, and he putts the ball very, very well. I think I read a stat that he made just under 500 feet of putts for the week, which is unbelievable. So yes, I think Nick Taylor is a lock, and I think he's going to be just so excited to play for his captain Mike Weir at Royal Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 4 wins now, and he won at Jackson Country Club back when it was an alternate event, and then Pebble Beach, the Canadian Open, which is arguably the biggest tournament in the world to those guys, and then now in Phoenix. So he's winning at pretty big places. I think he's a lock for sure. And I'm going to go even further and say I think there's going to be potentially 4, maybe even 5 Canadians on that team. When you look, you've got I think Nick Taylor, Corey Connors are both locks for me. You got Mackenzie Hughes, Adam Hadwin, and then Taylor Pendrith, who played at Quail Hollow. Now, Pendrith, to me, he played the President's Cup at Quail Hollow. I think Pendrith has not really performed well since then. But I mean, if these guys get hot, the buzz, I mean, watching Nick Taylor coming down the stretch at the Canadian Open last year, the crowds were massive and they were so pulling for Nick and all the Canadians that week. I think the international team needs to win this year. And I think having at least 4 Canadians on that team would just the crowd, the fan support, it would probably feel a bit like playing for the U.S. team, playing on European soil. And I just think that would be a huge for international team.
Do you think if Canadians are sort of just on the outside, relying on captain's picks, that Mike Weir will go down that road? Say he has two Canadians that have qualified, and there's a couple that are just on the outside. And I know obviously this is way down the road, and a lot will depend on form. But do you think Mike Weir will pick Canadians with those picks?
I certainly think so. I mean, just for the vibe and the atmosphere, that's why these teams have gone to 6 automatic and 6 picks, to have the ability to kind of go off the map and pick somebody that's gonna really rally the team. And I don't know. I think Canadians get on well with South Africans and Australians. And then you've got it's tough on the international team.
It is,
where you've got such a language barrier between, you've got great South Korean players, Sunjae, Siwoo Kim. I mean, KJ Choi back in the day. I just think the language barrier is tough. So to have like pods, you could have like a Canadian pod and an Australian pod, and it makes sense to me. But what do I know? I've never been on one of those teams.
No, you're exactly right. It is tough. It's and I think Trevor Immelman and Nick started it, Ernie carried it on, and Trevor's continued from there. They've done a great job, starting with this shield and sort of that's what the rest of the world wants to play for, that shield. I remember when we played in 2013, Hideki was the only Asian player on that team, and it was hard on Hideki. His English at the time wasn't great. Had his interpreter with him, and there were a lot of times where he felt more comfortable sort of doing his own thing. And I think as the week went along, he incorporated himself more and more in the team. And I think we did a better job of, sort of inviting him in, bringing him in, and making him feel more comfortable. But at the time, Hideki had only been on tour for, I think, maybe 1 year. So didn't really know the guys that well. Plus that language barrier was difficult. I think the fact that there's definitely going to be several South Korean and Asian players on the team, no doubt about it. There's so many guys playing really well, certainly helps. But yeah, there'll be some kind of pod system, no doubt about it.
All right, I hate to say it, but Saturday during the lull in the coverage, when the second round was ending and the third round was beginning, I actually flipped over to Live Golf in Vegas. I was entertained. I mean, I think it was a great call for them playing a tournament in Las Vegas with the Super Bowl going on in Vegas. I watched for probably 15 minutes. I didn't think the quality golf was very cool, was very good, and the music kind of bothered me, but it was great. Like you said last week, it was great seeing Rahm. It was great seeing these guys play. There was actually kind of a pretty decent scene out there. It looked like they were playing Las Vegas Country Club, which was right off the strip. I mean, so location, the vibe of that city had to be electric. So, I mean, good on them for doing something different and trying to get in the mix like that.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's an acquired taste, I would say. It's going to take some getting used to. I'm with you there. I have no problem with the guys in shorts, and honestly, I really don't mind the shotgun start either. It's different. I don't mind it. I know you're not big on that. I don't like the music. I think for some reason I feel like the music takes away from it a little bit. I saw John Rahm was complaining already. He was upset.
Shocker.
Yeah, he was upset with some guy that was getting a little bit unruly there and maybe trying to get some guy to shut up while he played. But, the fact that you've got music blaring and guys yelling, there's going to be some disturbances out there, no doubt about it. But yeah, I think it is somewhat of an acquired taste. But there will be a lot of people that will take to that. There'll be a lot of the younger crowd that'll really enjoy that, the guys that aren't the traditionalists, excuse me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Dustin Johnson won. My problem with the shotgun start is that when I turned it on, I didn't know where they were in the round. I had no clue. I didn't know what hole they were on. I could see it, but I didn't know if they're playing the 14th, if they started on 10 or if they started on 1. I had a problem with that. But, the team aspect as well, I think that remains to be seen if people are actually going to get behind a team. If you have a favorite player that's on a team, is that the team you like, even though they have 2 guys on the team that you can't stand? But my mind is opening up. I'm gonna give it a fair crack because I feel like I need to be a little more fair to the system. And if things come together, I don't want to have made such a ridiculous stance that there's no coming back from it. So my mind is now open.
Let me ask you this now. I loved college golf. I really did. I loved the fact that there was that team aspect of college golf. Essentially meant more than the individual, right? I love that. And I like the fact that you hack it up the first round, you hack it up the second round, you still have that ability to help your team win the tournament. Some guy might be 40 shots off the lead, but he knows if he goes out and he shoots 65 for that final round, he's not going to help himself individually, but you still might help your team win that team title. I really love that. I think there's something there. Maybe there might need to be a couple tweaks here and there, but I think there is something there as far as that team golf goes.
And I agree with you completely on the college golf thing. Obviously, for those that don't know, you and I were teammates for 3 years at Virginia Tech, and there was nothing like it. Some of the greatest memories of my life are from us playing with for years together, and we've remained friends since. I'm with you there. I just don't feel like on these teams there's necessarily a ton of allegiance yet, and maybe
Yes.
that's because I haven't been following it too much. The way they've traded a couple players back and forth, I'm with you, and my mind is open. I'm going to start paying attention to it a little bit better. I thought it was brilliant that they finished on Saturday, not even thinking about competing, and they really got a good break with the weather. The way the last 2 weeks they've gotten a good break with no Sunday at Pebble. They had Sunday where it was the only golf on television. Yeah. And then this week, with the timing of the Phoenix Open finishing the second round Saturday and starting the third round, there was like a 2-hour window of golf you didn't really care about. That's when I switched over. So I think a lot of people probably paid attention to it the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I'll tell you what else guys are paying attention to. Some of these scores that are getting shot on this Corn Ferry Tour. I know that they were playing a short golf course at elevation there in Bogota, but we saw a 57 and then a 59 the next day. The scores that are being put up on that Corn Ferry Tour are just absolutely unbelievably good.
And Brendon, I don't care if you put me on the forward tees at some golf course. Shooting 57, you still have to get the ball in the hole. And I mean, it's the lowest round ever shot in a PGA Tour sanctioned event. So it's quite something for sure.
Yeah, it's been very impressive. The guy that shot 59, Aldrich Potgieter, young South African guy. The word on him is that this guy could be the next superstar. Was the youngest ever British Am winner. He's now won on the Corn Ferry Tour, one in the Bahamas there. And from everything I've heard from guys, this guy is a name to watch. As I say, only 19 years old. So they get younger and they get better as we get older, Wags.
They do. Say his name again for me one more time.
Aldrich Potgieter.
you really put in the accent there that second time. All right. Moving towards Genesis. Yeah. I am personally fired up. I am on the ground walking this week. Tiger Woods has committed. He's in the field. I think there's a good chance. So I'm going to be with Golf Channel next week, and Aaron Oberholzer and I are the two walkers. So I've reached out to Aaron. He's got seniority on me, and I reached out to him and said, hey, if at all possible, I would love one day of walking with Tiger. And he said, absolutely. That's not my decision. Some of the producers may say differently, but I'm particularly fired up to potentially walk with Tiger. But even if I don't, the field at Genesis signature event, it's outstanding. One of my favorite tournament venues I've ever been to. The way Riviera sits down in that canyon, and when you play late on a Sunday, the echoes of the crowd, I mean, the crowd noise just echoes and reverberates through the entire property. So I am particularly fired up about this week.
Yeah, that's as I said last week, playing Pebble, there's not many golf tournaments that I watch now where I feel a little bit jealous. Pebble was one, Riviera is another. I love that golf course. I think it's absolutely, it's a brilliant design. There's no tricks to it at all. Everything is straight in front of you. Essentially no hazards. There's that barranca that runs through the eighth hole there and runs through the golf course. But essentially no penalty areas on the golf course. What you see is what you get, and you go out there and you hit it from A to B. And if you can do that, you're gonna shape in this tournament.
The weather looks good. It's been good for the last 5 or 6 days in LA. The forecast is trending towards possibly rain on the weekend, which I'm not particularly excited about because I'm going to be out in it, but at least I don't have to play in it. The West Coast could really use a good weather week. Yeah. I mean, it seems like San Diego was a nightmare. Pebble was a nightmare. This week had its challenges with rain on Thursday. The West Coast really needs a good weather week, and it's going to get it for the most part, but I think we're going to see some more issues come the weekend.
I tell you what, that's a hard golf course when it gets wet and cold out there. It plays so long that Kikuyu gets thick, that the balls don't bounce in the fairways. I remember one year playing there where it was just so bad. You could just get it to the top of the hill on 18. And that was back when I was hitting a little bit further than I am now. I remember hitting 3 woods and rescue clubs into that 18th hole. And it just plays so long.
For a man of such heft, it's shocking how little power he has. That was in 2015 when you claimed to hit it further. All right, you got a pick for this week? I got mine.
I do. I've got a pick. I'm going to go with a horse for a course. This guy has he's won there twice. One of them was unofficial. They just played 2 rounds, but as
I know where you're going.
7 top 10s. He's coming off a very good weekend at WM there. I think shot 65, 66 over the weekend. So I am going to pick a veteran, another 43-year-old Adam Scott for my pick. Had to go pretty far down the list to find Adam, but really loves that golf course, has spoken outwardly about it, how it's his favorite golf course on tour. So I look for him to perform. And Riviera is one of those places that I do feel like you need some knowledge around that golf course. There is putting on those greens is very, very difficult. There's some breaks that you don't see. And I think Adam's going to shape this week.
Well, I love that pick. He was on my short list of picks as well. And I think he got a sponsor exemption, correct me if I'm wrong. So that's the first 2 signature events, well, excluding Kapalua, that there were no sponsor exemptions. He got one at Pebble and he got one at Riv. So yes, I'm with you on Adam Scott. That's a great pick. I'm taking a page out of your playbook this week. I'm going with world number 1, Scotty Scheffler. Finished 12th here last year, finished 7th the year before. The way you were talking about the greens and the trickiness of the putting really concerns me with Scotty. We're back on Poa annua. He hasn't won since the Players Championship. I think it's time. I think Scotty's going to come through this week and he's going to get it done. He's going to find something on those greens. And world number 1.
Well, the good news for Scotty is, as poorly as he's putting, if he misreads them, there's a good chance that he'll hit it on that line and it'll go in. So it might be exactly what he needs, where he can't read the greens. But you know what? Even if he doesn't win, he's going to be up around that lead as good as he hits the ball, and he'll probably get you a bunch of points. So you can add those up next week, and we'll talk about it again.
Well, you got to be careful with your picks in these signature events. You don't want to burn like you did. You don't want to burn Scotty Scheffler at the Amex or Phoenix Open. You want to take Scotty when it's a big point tournament, because you're pretty much guaranteed a top 10. It's funny, the West Coast swing. I remember back in 2008. I loved playing the whole West Coast. Katie and I, my wife, we used to travel in an RV, so I would just stay out there and play every tournament. And it was at Riviera in 2008. I was so frustrated with my putting, and I've always considered myself a good putter, that I actually got a belly putter made and I played it at Riv, and then the first 2 rounds in Puerto Rico with this belly putter, because that's just what the West Coast does to you. It makes you question everything you're doing. Then I switched back to my putter and had some success weeks later. But I think Riv's a great way to end, but I think guys are going to be really excited to get on some Florida, Bermuda smooth surfaces in a couple weeks.
I remember talking to a manufacturer several years ago, talking to the Titleist reps or the Scotty Cameron reps, and they said, exactly that. You would not believe how many putter changes come after the West Coast. Putter changes and caddy changes were always after that West Coast. Guys that got off to a bad start, they were ready to get rid of that caddy, and guys that weren't putting the ball well, they were ready to put a new blade in the bag. But you're right that these guys will certainly be ready to get on some good Bermuda. That Poa it's difficult. It's hard to make putts on, and it can drive you mad.
Well said. Anything else you want to discuss?
No, I think we've covered everything. I think you're going to have a really fun week. Anytime Tiger's in the field, I think it adds that much to it, obviously. First time we've got to see him play since he played the father-son there with Charlie. And you know what? All I'm hoping for is those first couple rounds, there's less of a limp. I'm just hoping that there's very little limp in that gate. I think he's always going to have a slight limp, but I'm just hoping that it's less than it has been.
Yeah, and it certainly is going to be a barometer for the rest of the year, as it was last year. It turned out he made the cut at Riv and then played Masters with Drew, and that was basically all we saw from Tiger. So I'm hoping, like you, that would be great if we could just see him a little bit more often. The game of golf would be in a better place.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, you have fun out there, Wags, and thank you for everybody for listening. This is always a lot of fun for us, and we'll see you guys soon.